2017, that figure rose to 22,428. The total number of applications received in 2000 together to serve the public, and we must continue to promote great.
Chief Registrar, Board Member, Mr. Lianagi, Acting Director, Mr. Shaheen Ali, members of the corporate staff, the Legal Aid Commission, IT and support staff, and media attending. Lisa Yandra, Namaste. Good morning, everyone. South Phorexia. Well, I'm not sure any talent contest would have been selecting you today for a choir competition. I thought the national anthem was a little weak, certainly on the side of the tenors and the basses. Maybe whilst you're here at this hotel, they have quite good choirs, we might improve that. Anyway, I'd like to join what the acting directors had to say about the progress of the Legal Aid Commission. Of course, firstly, I would like to thank you for all your work during the past year. I have a bit more to say about that. It is true, an organisation is a team. And I remember that from my days in private practice, and I went to court and was happily rewarded with some good result. I always came back and thanked the staff, because I knew that what I'd been able to achieve in court was only achievable because of all the support staff in the office who helped to put together the affidavits and the papers and all of the things that had to be done. The filing fees going down to the registry, the preparation, the extra work, etc., all went into the final performance, which was seen, if you like, by counsel in court, but of course so much more had to happen before that case could be presented in that way. So anybody who thinks that they could be a star turn on their own has got it all wrong. It's the team that makes the strength. So I would also join with the acting director in thanking you for the work you've done over the past year, and it is very significant. There are two things I'd like to mention about the Legal Aid Commission. One is that, yes, the government is to be congratulated for advancing this organisation from a small institution that it was up to about 2006, 2007. I think when one of the aid donors pulled out, abandoning the office as it were, the government stepped in and not quite sure what the ethos was to do that, but it was a very good decision because it had all kinds of ramifications for the ordinary people in Fiji. You are, as Mr. Ali has said, the largest law firm in Fiji. That is significant. And it's not just that, and I pay tribute to Mr. Ali, who we know is a very fine administrator. That tells you something about the success of the Legal Aid Commission. It wasn't just the lawyers, it was the powerful organisation of the administration of the institution that led to that strength and its ability to grow and to absorb the extra work, and a lot of extra work was piled on to the Legal Aid Commission. So I congratulate Mr. Ali, I congratulate you all for joining in that process and delivering the service to the public that they needed to have. I don't know whether people realise the enormity of that task from, say, 2007 to today, but it is very significant indeed. And I know it will continue to grow in terms of the type of service delivery. And over the next 2 days, we'll be talking a lot about that from your side of things. Secondly, there's been a great deal of cooperation amongst the institutions of the justice sector, the police, the corrections service, judiciary, the Legal Aid Commission, the DPP, and the Human Rights Commission. Now that is significant for this reason. Where the nation as a whole is determined to move on, to get rid of bad practices, let us say, the way interviews were conducted in Fiji, where people complained of being assaulted and their rights interfered with. Well, we're very concerned about that, and all of those institutions attended United Nations in Geneva, and twice now we've been able to report on the progress to eradicate torture from society in Fiji. And let me say at the outset, there's a great deal to be done, still to be done, much to be done, to change people's attitudes as to what they think they can do with other people, when we know they cannot do that, they should not do that. Now, video recording of the interviews of suspects in custody is a process that is being undertaken. Training has been undertaken with the Norfolk Police in England, assistance from the legal aid and members of the bar in Geneva. Many people are concerned about this, and they are surprised that the institutions, instead of being at each other's throats and squabbling, are on this matter of one mind, that we need to eradicate any form of torture or misbehavior, misconduct by the enforcement authorities, whether it's dealing with escaped prisoners or whether it's the interviews of those detainees. Now, in the courts, we will expect to see that evidence captured by video. We've seen it demonstrated to the judges and magistrates. We're all waiting for this to come through in greater form. But one thing I'm sure of, the combination, it's like the teamwork, it's when there's a combination of people from the various institutions with their own clientele, their own viewpoints, but on this we are of one mind, that we need to eradicate this form of violence from Fiji society. And the combination of work, the work in the first hour procedure that the Legal Aid Commission has done. The Legal Aid Commission has been very prominent indeed in providing that first hour procedure at the police station by lawyers attending, mostly from the Legal Aid Commission. We are persuading members of the bar to come in. They've been a bit slow, but we're working on that until they see it as a civic duty of theirs and a professional duty to give their time to get up in the middle of the night to attend the police station, to be present. Because the presence of the lawyer also ensures that the procedure is properly and fairly done. And what we have found, and this has been the experience in England and Switzerland and many other countries who adopted these procedures, the complaints do not occur. What was said at the interview is accepted. And sometimes in the course of the interview, documents are given to the accused, the suspect, and he says, yes, that's right, I agree with that, that's quite correct. Or if there's something not right in the document, he can say so. And the documents are also captured and put at the end of the interview, which is not only maintained in the cloud as an indestructible piece of evidence, that's the interview itself and the documents that were discussed, and that will now go forward to court. So what we will find is that the courts will not waste time on silly arguments. We will concentrate on the genuine defences that need to be put forward. And you as a Legal Aid Commissioner will need to sift those arguments, and you'll know which ones to go for. So that what will happen is the trials will be on focus points, not on, well, anything might happen, so I'll ask a few questions on this, I'll ask a few questions on that, and see what comes out of the box. No, it won't be done like that. As you know, there are pre-trial conferences where it is decided what are the litigation issues. We don't want to just be going into court not knowing what's going to happen, because we have to time how long is the case going to take. So the efficiency depends on knowing what is the defence, what are the issues that are going to be disputed. So I'd like to say, as I said in opening, that this cooperation is not only good for the Legal Aid Commission, good for the detained persons who are being interviewed, it's good for the professionalism of the police. Because before we start blaming people, the police officers are somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's husband. They're all members of the community. What we want to do is we want members of the community to do their job properly, professionally. And I think the way it's going, the police are beginning to see after the training that this is the way to do it. It is much more focused, much more professional, much fairer. They feel better about it. They don't have these complaints made against them because the evidence is there to show that the interview was properly conducted. So you can see everybody benefits from it, and most of all, the people of Fiji may feel they're living in a better non-violent society. That's what we want. Well, I'm honoured to be asked to address you this morning, and I propose to share a few ideas with you and hope that they will make you think about them carefully. I don't want to sound too critical, but there are always some points to be made which we should take note of. Well, like Mr. Ali, I'm a great believer in training. Workshops such as yours allow us to listen to topics, ask questions, and discuss amongst ourselves and management the problems we face and our views on how they should be tackled. Not everyone has all of the best ideas, but in a group with good teamwork, many more ideas come to the surface than we could think of by ourselves. New ideas come up in our quest to solve problems, fill a gap, or innovate a more reliable and responsive system. Training is an excellent time to have relaxing conversations with our colleagues in a nice hotel like this, some of whom we rarely see. We make new contacts, some friends, and help our working relationships in the office to be professional and cordial. We all want a good atmosphere in the office, to get along together, to understand each other, to respect each other, and to ensure we all do the right thing to ourselves, to the government of Fiji as our employer, and to the general public, our customers and clients. Your guiding legislation is the 2013 Constitution, and in particular Section 118, as well as the Legal Aid Act 1996. A few points from that legislation. It is clear the Commission is to provide free legal aid services, quote, to those members of the public who cannot afford the services of a legal aid practitioner, end of quote. Your own rules, guidelines and procedures will indicate how that process is to be operated. Acting with integrity, fairness and honesty are essential for that task. You are administering the taxpayers' money to help a limited segment of the community. Your task is not to provide free services only to your relatives, friends, or persons from your settlement, church, village, or matangali. Your guidelines are to be administered impartially. In this role, the impartiality of a judge should be your guiding star. Some people think only judges have to be impartial or fair and to avoid favoritism. But in many areas of our lives, whether a judge or layman, we are expected to be impartial and to treat people equally. The Commission has a good deal of autonomy. It has to be, as you also to be free of politics. This is especially so in 2018 because we know we are in an election year. The courts wish to keep politics out of court, and the same applies to the grant of legal aid for cases. Funding is for genuine cases, not for political point scoring. Yes, some cases have a political angle to them. That can at times be unavoidable. But we try to concentrate on the well-accepted principles of the civil claim or the elements of the criminal charge only. Similarly, politics is not for the office. You must demonstrate to the clients that you have no axe to grind. You're there to assess their applications and to be part of the team that puts their case to court. The same goes for race, religion, gender, the disabled, and people who you feel are different from you. You should welcome them and attend to their different needs as equals. The Commission, as you know, is an independent body. Besides regulating its own procedure and making rules and regulations for its work, it acts independently of government in the way it performs its functions and exercises its authority and powers. The Commission has authority to appoint, remove and discipline all staff. The Constitution specifically includes administrative staff. It decides terms and conditions of employment, Section 118(7)(a), extent of salaries and the numbers of employees is subject to the budget for such expenditure being approved by Parliament. However, it is the constitutional duty of Parliament to ensure that adequate funding and resources are made available to the Commission, quote, to enable it to independently and effectively exercise its powers and perform its functions and duties. Lastly, Section 118, subsection 11, the Commission is to provide regular updates and advice to the Attorney General on any matter relating to its functions and responsibility. For the administration, there is also the annual report to be tabled as a parliamentary paper, the Strategic Plan 2018-2022 and the 2017-2018 Operational Plan to discuss, plan and prepare. The public service, as well as certain areas of the private sector, had gained a reputation, occasionally, for a lack of professionalism over attendance and punctuality. With so many roadworks being undertaken at the moment, getting to work by bus, taxi or private car has become a headache. It is to be hoped the contractors and the Roads Authority will ease the blockages. Building good roads and bridges is one thing, thinking of customer service for the road users and providing properly for them is another. The road users are their customers. Ultimately, we will receive a great benefit with the improvements, but more consideration needs to be extended to the road users. Second, in our offices, we may have to consider staggering working hours to permit our staff to avoid the worst hours of the traffic congestion. Sometimes we must be flexible in such matters, show initiative, and respond to temporary difficulties imaginatively. If we keep in mind good customer services, we should come up with the right solution. But apart from the roadworks, and even prior to the roadworks, there was a noticeable lack of punctuality by some officers. If you are not there at the right time, you cannot provide support to the legal officers who may need your help at that crucial hour before going to court. Work in the legal office is very much about teamwork, the sorting of court documents, photocopying, preparing the copies of affidavits with the exhibits attached, all in order. These matters are important and require order and method. The other day, counsel sheepishly had to admit in court that an affidavit had been sworn without its exhibits. Everybody had slipped up in the process. Why was it not picked up? How was it the affidavit was compiled without the exhibits to be attached? Whenever I had to go to court as counsel to obtain an important order for the client, great care in the preparation of the documents had to be taken. If you are 30 minutes late, you're not there at the crucial time. Professionalism means punctuality also. Give yourself enough time to get there on time. As they say, plan ahead. If you're there early, you will be well prepared. You'll be ahead of everyone else. You are ready, switched on, have already worked out a few things, what to do next, in what order, and resolved a few queries. Another troublesome failing is the staff member who makes a habit of not coming to work on Fridays or Mondays. Only later is leave applied for. So the leave, so far as the officer is concerned, is unplanned for. I'll speak in a minute about lifestyle, if I've got time. The main thing is to have balance in your life. You work in the office as a team. It is the team, if it is effective and well led, that does not have a member of the team in it who would think of letting down his or her brothers and sisters in the team. If you do not plan leave and do not turn up, and do not apply for leave or even notify your reporting head of section that you cannot attend work, you leave the team having to pick up the pieces by your absence. Many things go wrong when the person who was assumed to be in and available to carry out that function is in fact missing. Planned leave means that we can arrange for your job to be covered by someone else, and that your job is therefore catered for and is done. Well, now, I don't know if I've got time, but I'll just raise for you a couple of things. Customer service. That's very important, isn't it? You're the same as the people in the hotel on the front desk who deal with all the problems and the issues that arise. It's no good saying to somebody who's just come down on a bus and they're in their 70s from night to you say, come back tomorrow. That person can't come back tomorrow. They may have other things to do. They may not have the money to keep coming back. They've already made a big effort to come down today. You've somehow got to solve their problem today, or do most of it for them so they're satisfied. You've got to think always of the other person. Put yourself in their shoes. What is their problem? Our business is to try to solve the problem. And you know, sometimes we can't solve the problem, but people do appreciate it when they can see you're really trying to solve the problem. So that's the issue, and that's the attitude. And on the telephone, it's no good saying, he's out. He's out. What? That's no help to anybody. You don't say anything more, say, he's out. And sometimes they're very quick, they put the phone down. They can't even come up with a supplementary and say, well, is there anybody else who can deal with this? So think again of what the poor person on the other end is facing. And sometimes people are not very articulate and they're gabbling because they're nervous. You have got to cope with all of these problems. And when you are looking after something, maybe the director's asked you to look at it, you have to give it to somebody else, have a bring up on it that you'll come back tomorrow and ask what's happened. Because you were given the job. It's no good saying, oh, but I gave it to so-and-so to do. It's your responsibility because the director asked you to do it and to see it's done. So the bring-up system is essential as a form of administration. Don't just say, oh, well, I gave it to him. I mean, I think he's, you know, he probably finished it by now. How do you know it's been finished? If somebody came with an inquiry, perhaps there was a question from the Prime Minister's office, and they wanted to know what's happening with this case. There's a complaint about it. Well, you need to mother it through until it's sorted out, and the person who asked about it is satisfied that you've given an adequate answer. So the bring-up system is important. Remember, the answer is problem solving. All right. I mentioned teamwork. I won't say anything more about that. Lifestyle. It is important to have that in mind because the key to whether you can perform in your work is very much associated with lifestyle. Because if your life is all upside down and in pieces, you cannot do your job properly. Now we know people go through different difficult phases. They've had a very close bereavement in the family, and that is truly upsetting. And we know for a time that person cannot focus and cannot concentrate. And that is something that you, as a part of the team, are aware that this person at the moment is a wounded bird because they are not able to focus because of what is this tragedy that has occurred to them. And for a while, the team will have to discuss how to cope, how to cover for that person. So those things are understood. But of course, if somebody's coming late because 3 nights in a week they're in a nightclub, and then they've got to deal with the moneylender, and you come into work, the lipstick's all smudged up here, you realise that their life is spinning out of control. So, you know, of course, a time will come, it may be, I hope it's around the corner, the new pay might turn up. And that's good news in many ways, but not to spend it on more lipstick and all these other lifestyle things and only give a bit to the moneylenders. What we want you to do with the new pay is siphon some of it off at the start. Question is building. Your life must be about building, creating, doing something for yourself, your family. It might be your parents, you come from a very poor background, you want to do something for them. Or you're wanting to buy a house with your wife or your husband, and all of these things, you want to make something. It's not to be greedy. We don't all have to be very rich, but it's to make something of your life, to be creative, to have a useful, worthy end product. So I hope, the soldiers, when they go to Lebanon or Golan Heights or Sinai, they've got a lot of time to think before they finally get the money at the end. Now, in the old days, what used to happen is some of them never got out of Nandi town, never got back to the village, because the money, they were there for 2 weeks in hotels with about 6 girls on each arm, and they didn't know whether it was Monday or Friday, and the money was gone. But very, very quickly, those soldiers got wise to the question. Because very rarely in life do we suddenly get a lump sum of money. I mean, it might have been about $30,000 US, I don't know, all at once. So that 12 months of thinking is now devoted to proper planning. And some of the wives have already got good plans also as to what they think should be done. Not to buy the twin cab for Uncle so-and-so, or the outboard motors on the railway, or lots of other things that gobble up the money and don't seem to leave you with anything. So you've got to plan a bit more your life. So if there is a pay increase around the corner, think seriously about some money for the unit trust. Is that right? You have an MOU? Not yet, but we do in judicial. And I am told that the Fiji Elections Office, every single member of the office is putting a fortnightly amount into the unit trust of Fiji. And the moneylenders seem to have disappeared from the office. Now, for a lot of people who suffer the anxiety of debt, this is a very good thing in your life. To be the other way around, to think you're building and not that you're being dragged down. How are you going to deal with this? How am I going to pay for that? Which makes people uncomfortable. You don't want to go around with a lot of anxiety. You're not a happy person. We want you to be happy people, contented, worthy, doing your job properly. Those commitments which you should honour. But you need to get into a better place. So I hope the MOU will come up soon. Many people from judicial now are putting in money. I didn't say put in $50 a fortnight, but I'm surprised how many people have said put $50 in. Some have done it for their children, even just to start. And then the dividend comes in, it goes back to buy some more units. Just leave it there. Sometimes I used to say, okay, put it in the unit trust, don't tell your wife. But she said, I can't do that because it's the wife that told me to put it in the unit trust anyway. So think about that. That's very important. And also some of you think about the possibility of maybe putting another 2% from your side to F&PF. 8% is going in, 10% from the government, the employer. At this stage in your life, a lot of you look young to me, 2% you probably wouldn't miss it. But in the end, it's going to make a difference. Mr. Warren Buffett used to talk about compound interest. It's one of the wonders of the world. Well, if you're in your 20s or 30s, there's a lot of compound interest going to go in if you allow that F&PF fund to grow. And as we know, it seems to be a fund that's doing well. We're in one of their properties now. Isn't the Marriott one of those as well? Partly the Marriott, partly the GPH and Holiday Inn and a few others. So we can see what's happening to our money, if you like. So think about that. If this pay increase comes up, be prepared. You've done your planning as to what you might do. Because, money that's siphoned off your pay, you don't miss it. That's the truth. you don't miss it. And instead of it all being loans that are zapped off your pay, this is something you know you haven't lost, it's there, it's building for you. So, as an old person, that is my advice to you young people. If only I had had that advice when I was in my 20s, I might have been in a better position. But I know it's going to be good for you, so that's why I'd like to leave you with that note. I was going to deal with the program, there's not enough time for it, but it is an excellent program, lots of very relevant stuff there. I hope you'll ask lots of questions, there'll be some discussion, and your viewpoints are much to be valued. And I'm sure that you're in an institution where your views will be listened to. So I wish you all the best in the workshop today and tomorrow. Thank you.